I'm excited to announce the release of version 2 of my Loudness Penalty plugin, which includes a range of new features, including the intuitive new block display that shows you all the loudness properties of your audio at a single glance, full resizability for use on high-res displays and extra flexibility, more nuance and information about platforms like Spotify and YouTube Music, and for the first time ever, emulation of the only limiter you will encounter in online streaming platforms, which is when users enable loud mode in Spotify. So in this video, I'm going to show you through all of those features and more. Let's get started. So probably the most obvious change here is the addition of the new graphical block view over here on the right hand side. You may already be familiar with this from the Loudness Penalty Studio application, but it lets you see all of the key loudness metrics of your audio at a single glance. You can zoom in and out on it, you can hide it if you prefer to go back to the classic view with only numbers. And this shows you the integrated loudness of the audio measuring with the pink line here. It shows you the maximum peak level at the top of the block here. It shows you the loudness range, which is the white area here with the loudest moments of the song at the top and the quietest moments at the bottom. And the difference between the peak and the integrated loudness gives you the peak to loudness ratio, or PLR, which shows you how heavily limited or clipped the audio is. And of course, it will also show you if there is a loudness adjustment required on the service you're using. This song isn't triggering a reduction at the moment, but if we move to a louder example, then we can see that by enabling the preview button here. The amount of gain adjustment is represented by the pink chevrons here, showing currently a reduction of 4.3 dB on Apple, as opposed to 2.5 on YouTube and Spotify. And the interface itself is now fully resizable. We have the original default size, we have the larger size that I was just using, we have a new maximum size for people with 4K displays, and we also have added a new mini mode that just reduces it down to this list view here. You can drag it out to see all of the different platforms listed. The little tick here shows you which one is being previewed. And actually, you can resize the window freely as you would like. You can have the numbers only, you can have the numbers plus the new graphical display, or you can increase the size up to the maximum. We've also added the option to freeze all of these measurements at any point if you would like to, using the lock button here. And the usual way that we'd recommend that you use this is to measure a complete song and then lock the values so that you're previewing exactly the result that you would get if you were listening on one of the streaming platforms. In terms of the streaming platforms themselves, we've also added more detail and nuance in this release. For YouTube, you can choose between the standard video platform, where the vast majority of people listen to their music, but you can also preview the values for the dedicated YouTube Music platform, which typically has a higher distribution loudness and less aggressive loudness penalty results than the video platform. For Spotify, we've added support for the default normal mode that at least 87% of users use, but also subscribers have the option to choose the quiet reference level, which enables much more flexible loudness normalization over the widest possible range of genres, and the loud setting, which is intended for listening in noisy environments, and we'll come back to that in a moment. The final extra platform that we have available here is the Apple Legacy mode that uses the old soundcheck method on older devices and older versions of Apple Music and iTunes. Now, I mentioned Spotify's loud setting, and that's definitely worth looking at in more detail because we've added an important new function in Loudness Penalty to reflect this. So this functionality is only available to paid subscribers of Spotify at the moment. The options are visible in the preferences for free users, but they don't seem to do anything, and it's been that way for several years now. But enabling the loud option has two different effects on Spotify playback. First of all, the distribution loudness, so that's the reference level that Spotify is using to decide what level the loudest songs should be played at, increases from -14 to -11 LUFS. And what that means is that if you're listening in shuffle or playlists As well as louder songs being turned down to -11, quieter songs will be turned up. Now, in the normal and quiet modes on Spotify, if either of those changes would cause clipping, the song will not be lifted. So for example, if you had peaks at 0 and an overall loudness at -16, Spotify would not increase the gain, but that changes in loud mode. What actually happens is that the loudness is lifted up and a limiter is enabled to prevent clipping. So if we switch back to the quieter example song, you notice that I've locked the value with the overall result. So this is the actual result that you will get on streaming services, whereas Spotify's normal default mode is showing a reduction of 0.8 dB. If we switch to loud mode and enable preview, we can see that the level is being boosted by 2.2 dB and the limiter is active as a result. You're hearing the preview with the limiter enabled. You also have the option to select the delta button here, which will only play you the difference between the limited and the unlimited signal, so you can hear exactly what effect the limiting is happening on your music.
Is this a wasteland after all? What branches? What branches?
Now, I just want to reiterate that limiter is only active if you have a paying Spotify subscriber who chooses loud mode and you have a song that is below 11 LUFS. But one of the other interesting things we discovered while we were testing this emulation is that in fact this gain boost is applied in order to attempt to get the song up to -11 LUFS, but then the limiter is applied and it pushes down on that level. So if we switch to a very famous dynamic example like Aja by Steely Dan, you can see the gain boost is much higher because the original level of the song was much lower, and the amount of limiting is much more extreme. And in fact, even with the limiter in play, this song only gets up to -12 LUFS. Now, so few people hear the music in this way that personally I'm not too concerned. I think if people have enabled loud mode because they are listening in a noisy environment, then the quality of the reproduction is not their biggest priority, and I don't want to compromise the results that I get catering for that scenario and having that affect all the other different playback situations that we have. I think we're probably only talking about a few percent at most of people listening in this way. You might feel differently though, and this new Spotify loud mode limiter emulation enables you to hear the effect of this limiter for yourself and make your own mind up, which is the whole idea of loudness penalty. The penalty isn't the numbers, the penalty is the effect they could have on the music when people hear it and whether we're comfortable with that or not. So there you go. Loudness Penalty version 2 is available now from meterplugs.com. and there is a special upgrade price available for existing users. My name is Ian Shepherd. Thanks for listening.